Thank you for auditing the Always Positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to be doing some EPs this week. EPs are interesting because when they're by an established artist, they often feel like they're sort of like filling in the cracks in between larger works. But sometimes for aspiring artists or new artists, it's like a little taste of what's to come. So I'm going to be reviewing sort of back-to-back EPs from very different young artists, Dev Lemons and then later Skye. And let's start off with Dev Lemons, but the sort of metaphor that I like to think, I'm sort of in a sports mood these days, is like sometimes baseball cards, they'd be like this, and then they'd say, future stars underneath. And they'd show pictures of players who have played a little, they haven't played a lot, but they have good prospects, and they might end up becoming a star, like you might end up like, Bob Boner over here. Well, he didn't really make it big, neither did Jeff Schneider, but the guy in the middle is Cal Ripken Jr., who was a star. So, I think these sort of debut EPs that come out, especially this one, Delusional by Dev Lemons, it's sort of getting a feel. You get the sense she's going to release a big pop album in the next year, that she's going to have her rookie card, so to speak. But until then, we're sort of having this future star, this sort of looking ahead hype. Who will be the next Joe Hesketh? Is it you, Dev Lemons? Now, it's interesting because I think a lot about music in relationship to my family, and I have a teenage daughter, and she has very good taste in music. And this is exactly the kind of music that I think she would have been very into like 2 years ago. Sort of female-led pop, sort of rock adjacent, maybe hyper pop adjacent. But it's sort of funny that I don't think she would like it now. I think she's sort of outgrown it. I mean, I think she would like it. I don't think she'd think it's bad. But it's interesting to see that I see this Dev Lemons as a real sort of step up and a sort of like Olivia Rodrigo and Melanie Martinez didn't, I don't think, necessarily create anything, but they helped to make space for a different kind of female pop star. One who is not explicitly sexualized nor asexual, who's a little bit nerdy but isn't defined by nerdiness. This sort of very human person that women are rarely allowed to be. It's one of the critical aspects of feminism is the primary goal is that women get to be human beings, that they don't have to be defined by being a woman or the expectations of them being a woman. And I think albums like this, EPs like this, really hit that home. And I think of that with the album cover, which is what really drew me to this album in the first place. So if you haven't seen the album cover, it is Dev Lemons, real name Dev Schmaltz. Great, I think it's a Yiddish word, right? Or is that schmutz? Isn't schmaltz a Yiddish word? I don't know, it's a great word. But I guess she doesn't want to go by Dev Schmaltz, she goes by Dev Lemons. And she's wearing a coonskin cap, which I'll discuss in a second. And she's looking kind of nerdy at the camera, wearing a sweatshirt, which I believe says abstinence, the new sexual revolution, while people behind her are making out. There's another shot from this photo shoot of like other people making out behind her, and it's about her sort of lack of comfort with these people. I remember in high school when friends of mine started hooking up, or when friends of mine found girlfriends. I've seen it happen with my kids as well. Like when you start seeing it, there's sometimes this feeling you get of like, I'm not a part of this party. So like, what do we do? Like if you're a young woman, or a girl, and everyone around you is sort of pairing up and finding a boyfriend or finding a girlfriend, what do you do? Like how do you exist in that space? And I think that this image of her on the front is that perfect expression of that. That's just sort of like, here I am wearing an ironic abstinence shirt and a coonskin cap. How come the boys don't think I'm cool? And that's a kind of being, a kind of nerdy but not too nerdy position that she takes throughout most of this EP. I do also think this is a reference to Charlize Theron's character from the TV show Arrested Development, the famous Mr. F arc, which has aged poorly in terms of ableism. So I'll just sort of say that. And interestingly enough, I ended up finding her TikTok, Dev Lemons' TikTok. And she does a lot of pictures where like her eyes are super far apart. And she has kind of a dumb look on her face, which also theoretically could be sort of ableist. The term is hyper tellurism, when your eyes are very far apart, and it's usually connected to some sort of genetic disease. So I know it kind of looks funny, but kind of the two things in combination, I don't know. I'm not out here to cancel anybody. It's just sort of a weird thing that kind of sticks in my head. But still, anyone making an Arrested Development reference, no matter how questionable the original joke is, I mean, behind me you actually see a part of the original Tiny Town from season 3 of Arrested Development. It's a screen-used prop. It's seen better days. But really, when I'm thinking about this music and why I like it, a lot of the reason that I like it is I went onto her TikTok. Now, I don't understand TikTok. If you're on my TikTok, you know I don't get it. I don't get it. I spend time there. I end up like just watching a lot of like clips from The Naked Gun and Police Squad. I have a really hard time, like if I see like somebody in a bikini, like not immediately turning it off. So then I get lots of people in their bikinis, which is not really why I put on my phone. So it just gets very distracting that way. So I haven't figured out how to curate my TikTok feed to be anything other than women in bikinis and Lieutenant Frank Drebin from Police Squad, which is, that's a weird kind of mixture of a TikTok feed. You can tell me in the comments how to do it if you want. My kids told me all these ways of fooling the algorithm. I don't enjoy TikTok enough to really worry about it. I like other forms. But watching her TikToks, like, it's very clear that she sort of gets how to do it in a way that I understand. Like, she had this great TikTok where she says, I didn't want to talk about this, but I have to talk about it, and other people are talking about it, but now it's time for me to say my piece. I have to talk about it because it's just important that you hear it from me. And then it ends, and we never know what it is. It's a perfect example of satire. She acts it out well. Some other clips, she just has this sort of easy, approachable way. And when we're thinking about what is the future of music, what is the future of pop music, I think you have to be TikTok fluent if you want to be a pop star, if you want to relate to middle schoolers and high schoolers. I think you have to have, it's not even an it factor. I think it's a genuineness. I think you have to just have a natural ease about you. And I think she has that. So that's sort of why I keep sort of going back to this, this card here. Because, it seems like she might really actually have something to be something new and different and very interesting, like a very, very interesting, authentic, fresh voice in pop music. But let's get to the music, which when I'm thinking about it, it's sort of like, so I'm an old man, right? 45 years old, might as well be a million when it comes to listening to music like this. I think a lot about hyperpop. I enjoy hyperpop. And it seems like hyperpop is the future, but I don't think hyperpop is the future. I think pop, parentheses, hyper, is the future. By that, I mean pop music with just a little... Would you like some cracked pepper on your salad? Would you like some cracked hyper on your pop? Is enough. Yes? Good. Like, that's how much. That's a pepper shaker, by the way. I'm not a professional mime, but I mimed for a couple of years. That's the pepper shaker. That's the pepper shaker of hyper to be put on your pop. Let me give you an example with a stamp from this album, my favorite track on this album. It's short, by the way. The album's like 15 minutes. This review is probably going to be longer than the album. We'll see. With the track Nightstand. This is produced by Jordan Huang, who produces most of this album. I don't know who he is. I don't know. Jordan is a name that can go either way. They, who knows. But what I like about this is this, when I say pop, parentheses, hyper, it has this warbled guitar. It's very acoustic and rough sounding. It has sort of this crunchy bedroom style drum machine. It feels at once like it's trying to sound like in the vein of Olivia Rodrigo, sort of guitar driven bedroom pop that becomes super hyper popular pop, while at the same time it feels like it's from that school that was raised on hyperpop. Very high voice, and then this opening lyric, which is the best example for lyricism, 3 plates stacked up on your nightstand. I look forward to an entire album. by Deb Lemons, because that's a great lyric. Because it's a POV lyric. So she is opening up her eyes, presumably in bed with a lover. That's what I'm assuming. And she sees 3 plates stacked up on your nightstand. If you're with somebody who has 3 plates on their nightstand, and mind you, that would have been me up until I tried to civilize myself at some point 15 years ago, it shows like a lack of care. It shows a lack of attention, shows a slovenliness. It shows a lot about the person that she's with. It says a lot. I bet a lot of people, especially a lot of women, can relate to this feeling of like, Jesus. I'm like, this person has bed, like plates on your night. Like, what does that imply? Plates on your night? It means you're eating in bed? Ugh. Come on, you know? Great telling detail. The hyperpop elements are very subtle and interesting. The voice is like slightly deformed. Retrace all your previous steps. Can't be bothered. Could be worse. Trying not to say a word. She's biting her tongue in this relationship with this slob. This great heartbreak chorus. It's just one line. Her voice is quite breathy. I do wonder if her producers want to tell her to scale back on the breathiness or not. I don't know. But this chorus, replace me with someone easier. Beautiful. That's a beautifully written line. It's one line, and it communicates a lot. Because someone easier is someone who doesn't notice that you have plates on your nightstand. One thing I like about this is you think it's going to go full Rodrigo. You think it's about to get rocking and epic, and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up, but it doesn't. It pulls back. It doesn't go epic. It doesn't get rocking. It stays restrained. For the most part, this EP is quite restrained. I like how at parts, sometimes the vocals are multi-layers doing the same thing, whereas here she actually harmonizes with herself. It's not just the Billie Eilish 17 over same voice over and over again. There's even a little bit of weird auto-tuning. Again, more of this slight pop hyper bit there. There's some horns, which remind me of the band Beirut. I don't know why. They just do. And then it gets louder and louder, and then it cuts, and then we just hear someone screaming, yeah. That's a great example of this album. We're going to go through the rest of the album much quicker. Cyberpunk Fairy, very blared out, unpleasant arpeggio sound. Again, that's that pop, parentheses, hyper, multiple voices at once, these strings. A very short song, just all the lyrics. I think there's just like 8 lines. Lit a flame, then I fell asleep. If I burn, it was meant to be. Sort of angsty, emo, like I'm not suicidal, but I'm sad, so I'll talk about not being suicidal style lyrics, which I imagine are quite meaningful to many people. Second song is Nightstand. Third song is Dizzy Vision. Now this is interesting because it's like an R&B style song, like real sounding drums. The singing kind of has sort of a gliding effect, kind of going high and low. At a certain point, her voice is matched perfectly by the instruments. This is very not hyper. This is very just sort of R&B. But then they do this cool hyper pop trick where the words are matched to sounds and it's cut out, da da da, that kind of sound. It's always sort of dipping its pinky toe. It's the little turn of the pepper grinder of hyper. The lyrics are boring here. I'm disappointed in these lyrics because it's the whole, hey, you're drugs. You're drugs. You're drugs. So I can't stop taking you because you're drugs and you make me feel high and you make me feel low. You're drugs. Okay. I feel like I need to write that song. You're drugs. You're drugs. You're drugs. You make me high. You make me low. You're drugs. You're drugs. You're drugs. You're just drugs. You are drugs. You as a human being are drugs to me, and I am a consumer of drugs, and the drug I consume is you. Thank you. That is a Professor Skye first. I wrote a song. That was totally improv. That's not even on my notes. That's my new song called Ya Drugs. Still, I like the little hyperpop tropes sprinkled throughout, cut-up sounds, cascading sounds, almost a Steely Dan organ at the end. That was unexpected. Next song is called If You Want to Reach Me. You Got to Reach With My Friends. Again, produced by Huang. Blown out vocals and blown out synthesizers. What's cool about it is that because she's so personal, she's so charismatic, that even when she gets sort of hypery, she never gets that sarcastic distance, that ironic distance. So maybe that's part of what stops it from really being that way. Just kind of guitar and a pop-style drum machine loop. It's a nice track, spectacular pop breakdown. The care on the production is really nice. Next track is You Tear Me Apart. This feels like this is supposed to be the single. This feels very tick-tocky. This feels like this is trying to hit emotions with a stilted piano, where I think it's trying to sound very like it can be used to illustrate emotions on TikTok. Very little structure on here, like layers over the verse, and it's breathy, very breathy. Everything is never how it starts. But it's still a great song. Like it feels so of the moment that I have a hard time evaluating it. The chorus gets very pulsing, which is nice, has kind of like a pulsing feel to it. But then her voice gets so baby-like, it's almost incomprehensible. But I don't know. I really enjoy, especially at the end, that there's this insane chorus flange effect which goes over everything. And then the very outro, the very, very outro is a little real instrument jam. Just like a little jam. Just like a little jam. Like nice bass, really nice drums. Final track is by, again, produced by Huang. Think about it. Backward sound and these curly guitars. This is basically just straight pop. The voice is way, way, way up front. This is where I'd say her voice is the most engaging and most charismatic, especially the way she sings the words. Think about it. She does not... Listen, okay? Did you hear me sing that song? Do I need to prove to you what a good voice I have? Your drugs. Think about it. Anyways, point is, she sings up high and goes down low, and when she does it, it sounds good. She doesn't sound like Peter Brady. Old school Brady Bunch reference for all the zero Xers watching this show, this channel. Again, more of an indication maybe we're talking about the same person from Nightstand, clothes on the ground, shoes on the couch, this general lack of respect, this general lack of care. So there it is. There's this sort of rookie card of this band. Of this singer and this pop star, Dev Lemons. These are some of my Patreons. Okay, they help me buy music, so thank you to them. I have a whole bunch of new Patreons because I have a video that I have an early viewing of on my Patreon. My interview with Woods and Kenny Siegel. And all these folks gave me money just to watch that. So thank you all. You're going to get a big thanks when I finish editing that video. So you can check me out on Patreon. You can smash the like bucket. That's what I ask you to do. Smash the like bucket. Subscribe. Tell me, what do you like about Dev Lemons? What do you like about Dev Exit? Is Your Drugs the newest summer jam? Your drugs. All right. There's the camera.